this doesn't go terribly wrong.
Yeah, hopefully it doesn't go terribly wrong. Usually they always go terribly wrong.
I've gotten a microphone since last time I've talked to you guys, so I don't know if it sounds better or if it sounds worse.
To me, it sounds better. Yeah.
I'm actually using a wireless headset, so
I'm using
I was
David's headset, but his mic doesn't work.
I'm using a Snowball. I bought it specifically. So
yeah, I heard it's really good. So
sure.
yeah. Introductions.
You generally you start the introductions, Rahul. So
okay, fine. All right. So hello, welcome everybody. Podcast again. It's been a hot minute. It's been a hot take. It's been a lot.
but it's so cold outside.
God damn it, David! I was gonna do Hot Ones reference.
A little bit of Hot Ones?
Yeah, a little bit of Hot Ones. But now we can't do that because he ruined the introduction. Thanks, David!
Oof.
Alright, but anyway, hello everybody. Welcome back to the Lone Colony. We apologize for the absence. We do have other things planned out, but, you know...
We're very sorry to our 10 dedicated watchers.
yes.
If you watch the AVP podcast, you're the real ones.
yeah. Oh god, that was a depressing one. But anyway, slithering in from the deepest depths of the ocean and onto dry, squishy land, radioactive octopus, aka
The land is so dry, but it's so squishy.
yes, it is. Now, hailing in from Hamilton, where there's literally hail almost every other day. Actually, no, not really. 'Tis me, Repaw Reptiles, aka Rahul. And joining us...
I thought you were going to say hailing in from Hales Entertainment. It's like, Rahul, wrong American.
yeah, no, that's just for Nathan. That's just for Nathan. And joining us for the first time, he's you're an admin on the Cinema Oasis, correct?
No, actually, I'm not an admin.
Or
He's like one of the most common members. It's like post.
Yeah.
Okay, so just a common bitch amongst another common bitch.
Yes, I'm a basic bitch.
Carlos, welcome.
Yes. Hello there.
So yes, gentlemen, I don't know about this topic. For one, I'm very, very iffy. I have personal opinions on it, but you know, I might as well share them. Today we'll be talking about the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
In all its indomitable omnipotence.
Yes.
Yes.
So, we're here to discuss the MCU. So, me and Rahul here, not the biggest superhero, like, comic book movie fans. That's why we brought in Carlos here.
Man, we should have brought Steven.
Oh, God.
we'll have Carlos be the dedicated MCU fan, then we'll have the dedicated comic fan. Ooh, boy.
So, I think a good way to start this is, how about, like, how do we all get here? How do we all, like, get introduced to the MCU? Carlos, you start.
Well, growing up, I was always... I apologize. I've always been into, like, superheroes. Like, superheroes have always been a big part of mine. I was actually introduced to the Marvel Universe specifically through the Blade films, which is kind of fitting since those were the movies that kind of helped bring Marvel movies into the spotlight. But like I watched the Blade films when I was little because my mom brought them from Blockbuster. Remember Blockbuster?
No. That old relic.
You mean that one place in Alaska, but there's still one standing?
Oh yes, yeah, I remember seeing that. but yeah, she brought them over, and of course, because I was like, I don't even remember how old I was. I think I was like 4 or 5 or something like that.
Right.
She was like, oh, these are like for adults. So you can't watch them. And I was like, but I'm bored. I want to watch something. So I watched the movies with her, and I love them. I love them to death. And you know, and then at the same time, I was also watching reruns of Spider-Man the Animated Series. But I wasn't like really paying attention. It was just kind of something I put on whenever nothing else was on. But then one episode comes up, and fucking Blade and Whistler show up, and I'm like, wait, what? And then my little child brain just exploded, and I started paying attention, and then I was like, you know what, this Spider-Man guy is pretty cool. He's pretty interesting.
Yeah, he's a pretty good lad. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
I don't see too many movies being made about him, though. I don't think he has.
I know, right? I mean, when are we gonna get our first Spider-Man movie, guys? I mean, come on.
Cross our fingers.
And we can only hope. But Spider-Man the Animated Series, if you haven't seen it, it's like that show is infamous for like all the amount of like cameos and crossovers it has from like different Marvel characters. So that show basically introduced me to like most of the Marvel universe. So that's how I learned about Iron Man and War Machine and Doctor Strange and Daredevil and all that stuff. That's basically what introduced me to the Marvel universe. That show. And by the way, that show, when you go back and watch it, it doesn't hold up very well. I'm not.
Things do.
Yeah, I'm not usually willing to admit stuff from my childhood doesn't hold up very well, but that's one I'm willing to.
Listen, as a kid, who used to watch Jurassic Park 3 every day of his life.
True.
Jurassic Park 3 isn't that bad.
It's not that bad.
It's not great, but
just talking about it's like
Jurassic Park is the best Jurassic Park sequel. Fight me.
I can agree. I can agree with that.
Facts.
And so that introduced me to the Marvel universe, and and my mom used to take us to the Barnes and Noble like all the time. Like it's by like the theater near us, and at the Barnes and Noble, I would always go into like the comic section, and I would always like read a bunch of trade paperbacks of like Marvel stuff, and that's how I kind of got more into the comics. And then I got more into that at school because my mom wouldn't get off work until like 5 o'clock at night, so I had to wait for her somewhere, and I didn't want to wait at the school, so I would go to like a library and then read some Marvel trade paperbacks there.
So wait, when you say 5 o'clock at night, are you saying 5 a.m. in the morning or 5?
No, 5 p.m. 5 p.m.
Okay, good. I was about to question.
No.
A lot of things.
No. That would have been bad.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. And then of course, obviously, I end up watching like the movies, like all the various movies that come out, like every now and then. Although I didn't really get into X-Men until much later in my life. I want to say it wasn't until like maybe 2009 that I really started like getting into X-Men.
Right.
It was right before X-Men First Class was coming out that I actually started, reading some X-Men and actually started watching the movies. But like everything else, I was fairly, I wouldn't say I was an expert, but like I was aware of Iron Man, I was aware of Daredevil, I was aware of a lot of those characters because of that 90s cartoon, and because of whenever they would show up in like the Spider-Man comics I read. But Spider-Man was my main like kind of gateway. Although Blade was sort of the first thing, but there isn't really much good Blade stuff even in the comics, unfortunately. The movies are kind of the best thing that happened to that character.
Yeah,
but
it's arguably the best thing to happen to superhero films overall. They kind of definitely in the new era.
Yeah. Like the Blade films didn't make them popular, but they gave because those movies weren't really presented as superhero films per se. But they definitely gave more confidence in studios to like, oh, we can actually do these films and have them be critically received again, because obviously this was in a post Batman and Robin world where people were kind of afraid of superhero movies.
Oh yes, the best Batman movie.
All right, we should probably hurry this along. We're entering 10 minutes.
Sorry. But basically, obviously, Iron Man comes out, 2008 Iron Man, and I just really love the movie. It was great, and then I actually didn't find out about the after credits scene until like a few weeks before Iron Man 2 came out. So when I saw the after credits scene, I was like, "Holy fucking shit! They want to do the Avengers? How is this even possible? Like what?" My mind was just blown, and then from there, I just kept on watching the movies, and they've become probably my favorite film franchise currently.
Right. David, you go ahead. I'll go last.
Okay, so the funny thing is, I did not know what the MCU was for like 6 years after its inception. As a kid, my I didn't really I wasn't too big into movies as a kid. It was mostly like dinosaurs and then like Star Wars. That was it, right?
Star Wars or movies?
Well, yeah, but like not like outside of Star Wars.
Okay, that's fair.
So the funny thing is, my dad had a collection of DVDs, just like that he would pick up here and there. A lot of them just so happened to be superhero movies. So in my head, I just thought that like I guess I realized that superhero movies had just been around. So when the MCU was starting, I just didn't really pay attention to all these superhero movies coming out. Like, oh, it's just the normal blockbuster stuff, right? I didn't know they were connected. I thought Avengers was a one-time crossover, like Alien versus Predator.
Right.
And it was around 2014 where I actually started to give a shit about movies. And as I was like branching out and looking stuff up, that's when I realized, oh, these Marvel movies, so they're like connected and shit. And then and the first one I saw knowing that was actually Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, the ones I've seen before, some of them I liked, but I didn't really give a shit about, right?
Right.
I actually love Guardians of the Galaxy,
Oof.
and Jesus Christ.
Loud doggo.
Yeah, he was just here. Ooh.
So that got me. So I loved that, and then I did more research, and then that got me into kind of the MCU. And I think I missed Ant-Man, but other than that, since then I haven't missed a single one of these in theaters.
Yeah.
Have you seen Ant-Man since?
I have. I saw it at home.
Okay,
It's all right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
The only one I haven't seen, ironically, is the first Captain America.
Oh, you haven't seen that? Like, period?
No, and it's not like I avoided it or anything. It's just circumstance. Like,
Oh, that's my favorite solo
Oh,
Phase 1
Yeah.
movie.
Well, if you go on Disney Plus, you could stream it right now.
Yeah.
Actually, I think just before Disney came in and pulled out all the Marvel films from Netflix, I think Captain America, the first one, was there.
Probably.
Yeah, just also wait, Carlos, you're in America, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, then yeah, our Netflixes are very, very different. Let's just say you have a richer. We'll just say you have a richer variety.
Canadian Netflix is bad.
Yeah, it's real bad, and it's probably gonna get worse with Disney Plus. But yeah, in terms of myself, like Carlos, I grew up mainly with Spider-Man. I watched the old, I think it was the 80s or 90s cartoon. There was also this 3D animated one, which I can't really remember. I don't know what it's called, but I remember it had a really creepy portrayal of the, what was his name? Lizard? Reptile?
The Lizard.
Yeah, the lizard.
Was it Spider-Man the new animated series?
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. And I remember seeing the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man in theaters with my mom and sister. And throughout that time span for that trilogy, I was following it pretty heavily. Spider-Man 2 when it came out, we rented it on DVD and continuously watched it. When Spider-Man 3 came out, wasn't as excited. And kind of like David, I wasn't really into the whole superhero thing. It was mainly dinosaurs and Godzilla. That's it. Things really changed when David Stat just came over with that one Godzilla DVD. But yeah, um, when the MCU started with Iron Man and The Incredible Hulk, those were the two notable films that I remember. And yeah, sorry, Zamboni outside.
That's fair. It's alright.
Yeah. Anyway, I didn't really pay much attention to them. But as the MCU started to pick up, it was around when either Thor or Captain America, the first Avenger, came out. That's when I started to realize it was a cinematic universe. And then the Avengers came out, which kind of confirmed my suspicions. And yeah, I was kind of coaxed into it, rather than the sudden realization of, oh my god, these films are connected. But yeah, that's my overall experience with both the genre and the MCU. So yeah.
Yeah, and Jesus Christ, it's been quite the ride.
Yeah, it has been.
And and it is kind of it's so bizarre almost to see just how big it got.
Yeah.
Like it was I mean, hell, it was big when Avengers came out, and you think by after that it would start dying out.
Oh, no,
7 years
no.
later. 7 years later.
Avengers just opened the floodgates.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the irony is, it came like that was even after some of those Phase 1 movies were kind of just okay.
Yeah, mostly.
Yeah, I get it.
Like, Iron Man 1's great. I haven't seen Captain America, and but like Iron Man 2, not so good.
That's definitely one of their weaker movies.
Yeah.
Thor's meh.
I still enjoy it, but it's not as good as.
And Hulk is meh too, especially right after Iron Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still really like it. Like for me, like there isn't an MC movie that I straight up like dislike or hate, but there are some that I'm just kind of like, it's alright.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say the quality standard is shockingly high.
Oh yeah, they're very consistent, and I think that's part of why the franchise has been so successful.
Yeah. No, I got nothing else to add. Shit.
It's alright.
Yeah, and it's I guess cut to like. What's funny is, like I said, it was big. It's always been around, but I feel like it started creeping into just like Star Wars level of pulp culture relevance, roughly.
Oh, definitely. Like, if I'm pretty sure, like Nick has mentioned, me and Nick have talked about this before. That the MCU is basically going to be the Star Wars of this coming generation, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. If anything, it's already the case.
I feel like it really capped off with in terms of just with Infinity War, in terms of like I'm starting to see this in my daily life.
Yep.
Not just like on Facebook posts, YouTube videos. Like my teachers, my professors at university are making like Thanos references.
Yes. Yeah. Same for me. Like a lot of my coworkers like talk about it, and a lot of my classmates and even some of my professors also bring it up every now and then.
I don't even need to talk about all my classmates in an animation program.
Oh my god.
One of the funniest things was right after Infinity War, I was taking some summer school courses. One of my profs, they had this little interactive thing where it's like, who's the better superhero, Iron Man or Spider-Man, right? And there was supposed to be a thing where he talks about, like, it was supposed to relate to, like, something about, like, self-risk versus, like, what you're actually losing or something like that, right?
Okay.
So, and the answer was supposed to be Spider-Man, but he's just like, well, this usually I see most people voting Spider-Man, but
What?
Of course.
No,
Wow.
no, this was after Endgame. This was after Endgame. So after Tony Stark died, and like everyone, and like, which is funny because as soon as he said that, the vote started switching. It wasn't like marked.
fantastic.
But it's just, yeah, and oh my god, the especially after end, the online discussion just went to complete shit. Also, like the Star Wars face.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't think it's gotten as bad as Star Wars, but I think that's because Star Wars just has a longer history.
It definitely has a longer history, yeah, but we're definitely getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yes, intense toxicity.
Like Endgame has like there is a decent amount of people who weren't satisfied with Endgame. It's not like a Last Jedi situation where there's like a full on division, but like there is like a group of people. And also there's the whole thing with Captain Marvel, which
Yeah. We'll open that can of worms soon, but I totally agree with you. I think the majority of people who saw that movie ultimately liked it.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel's alright, like it's good.
Oh no,
That's
I'm
alright.
talking about Endgame.
Oh. Same thing with Endgame, it's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but especially what you see is this dichotomy where it's just, the usual, like, you go to movie pages or whatever, right? You're gonna see either they all like Endgame, it's like the best thing ever, or they all hate it, and anyone who likes it is just normie trash.
Yeah.
I haven't seen much of that. I mean, I've seen people like groups of people like dislike it, but I've never seen like to that extent.
Yeah.
I have.
Oof.
Implying movies are good.
Implying movies are good. Oh, the Kinoplex. Great place, but oh god.
But yeah, shit, I feel like we're running out of steam here.
Oh.
Like a part of
You're gonna say something?
I'm like trying to think of other topics we could talk about in terms of, possibly the history of the MCU, going through film by film.
I think one thing I did want to discuss was the future of it.
Oh boy, that I think we should definitely save for the end because there's a lot of things I want to talk about in terms of the future.
Ooh.
But like,
here's a simple one. What are your guys' favorite MCU movie?
that's another thing we should probably save for the end.
Oh, the
Oh my god.
Oh, damn, Rahul, we don't have anything to talk about now. We're gonna reach the end.
Shit, we're like reaching 23 minutes and we're already running out of material for what is going to be close to be one of the larger one of the larger franchises in cinema history, actually.
It's also a case of everything that has been said about the MCU has been said and will be said.
Yeah. You know what? Let's end this. No, I'm just kidding.
We should have found someone who just like fucking hates it all.
Oh my god, that would have been incredible.
Set them against Carlos. No, we saved that idea for the DC one.
Oh boy, that's gonna be a good one.
Oh, now we definitely need to get Steven.
I know how to get contact. We'll get content here. We'll get Nick and we'll say Alien Covenant shit and just let him loose.
Alright, I guess one thing I do want to talk about right now is how the MCU kind of changed the film landscape.
Oh.
Like how the whole of, like the cinematic universe arms race, the other studios keeping their eyes on, strict MCU release dates because they just decimate the box office time and time again.
Again, like going back to comparing it with Star Wars, like when the first Star Wars film first came out, like there was a bunch of, studios that were trying to make basically copycat films afterwards, because it was such a big, hit. And it really did change the landscape because like something like this, like a cinematic universe in the way the MCU has done really hasn't been done for. I know a lot of people, especially a lot of kaiju fanboys, like to be like, but Destroy All Monsters was Avengers before Avengers. But here's the difference with that. Those are just like basic crossovers where they're just like, oh, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then they just make a movie. With the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's something that's planned from the beginning, and it's something that they're very like, they go out of their way to make sure that little details and continuity sticks.
The irony is, if that logic were right when it came to Destroy All Monsters, then technically the oldest cinematic universe in film are the Abbott and Costello movies.
Yes.
Oh,
which would then make them in the same universe as the Universal Monster films, because they did crossovers with the Universal Monster movies.
That other franchise that tried to do the whole cinematic universe
Yes.
twice.
Well,
Yeah,
and
we'll
it's
talk about the Dark Universe soon.
and it's really interesting because like not that many have really been successful. The only one that's come close to success with the cinematic universe is, weirdly enough, the Monsterverse. But
Yeah.
even that is kind of like the King of Monsters was pretty like mixed received by general audiences, and obviously there's the whole thing with Godzilla versus Kong moving dates, and people are speculating it's because the studio doesn't have much confidence, but the fact that those movies have gotten as far as they did is pretty impressive, at least compared to like the other cinematic universe attempts.
Yeah.
It also helps that the first Godzilla movie wasn't. You can maybe argue the Monarch shit was, but it wasn't really.
No, it
in.
wasn't. I think they were definitely like maybe thinking about maybe the possibility, but it definitely wasn't like something they were.
Like, my personal consensus on it is that if we compare the Monsterverse to something like the DCEU, the problem with the DCEU is that it tried to hamper so much, tried to accomplish, what the MCU did in 10 plus movies with just 3 or 2.
Yeah.
And the
Also,
thing with the Monsterverse is it took its time. So you had Godzilla, you had Kong, you had the sequel to Godzilla, now you get Godzilla versus Kong. Instead of just Godzilla versus Kong, it's, just messed up orders, and, they simplified it. They decided to invest the money and the time to make proper films, to introduce the characters, get the universe established, instead of just trying to fit as many plot points into 2.5 hours of film.
And I think it also helps that the Monsterverse isn't so much trying to compete with the MCU the same way the DCEU is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like obviously the audiences definitely overlap, but like not to the same extent that DC and Marvel.
Yeah, it's all about the way they executed it overall.
Also, Man of Steel, I'm mellow on as a movie, but it is a rocky foundation to build your universe on.
You know what's even funnier? How both the Monsterverse and the DCEU basically had the same starting points. Godzilla and Man of Steel were made with no intent of a cinematic universe.
Essentially, yeah.
It was after that they decided to make a cinematic universe. So, again, it's all about that overall execution.
And it's also, now that you bring that up, it's also really interesting because both of those films are trying to follow up with a versus movie. But the difference between DCU and the Monsterverse is that the Monsterverse is building up towards that versus movie. It isn't just not going straight into it right away in the same way the DCU does.
I totally
agree with you
on that.
The irony is, though, I don't think that was setting itself up for failure if they just stuck to like Batman v Superman. Just have the focus be Batman versus Superman. Superman's introduced. Spend the first part of the movie introducing Batman. Have them fight for reasons, and then just
like I definitely agree with you there in the sense that there's this channel I watch called Geek Evolution, and the guy who runs it, his motto is that you can make anything work, you just have to make it work. So, the idea of doing Batman vs Superman just right after Man of Steel, obviously, when you first heard it, you're like, but there's still a possibility you can make that work,
Yeah.
but
I think the solution would have just been the classic formula of keep it simple, stupid, you know?
Yeah. But instead
Or
they
if
just decide, oh, we'll foreshadow Justice League, we'll throw in Wonder Woman, and oh yeah, here's Doomsday and the death of Superman.
and
I mean,
also
the plot could have literally been basically the same in terms of Batman's doing his own shit. He's scared of Superman for reasons. They fight. Batman realizes he's wrong. End of movie. No
Yeah,
Doomsday. No Lex. No Afghan war.
no Marthas. Or maybe Marthas.
oh my
I
God.
don't know
Oh,
about
boy.
that.
Guys, we need to. We're doing a DC podcast. We need to see.
Yeah, that's true. We need to save that for that. I have I'll probably have a whole thing for that.
Yeah.
It's a bit too easy to talk about.
Yeah, it's like it's easy to talk about the effects of the MCU, but it's not easy to talk about the MCU itself. God damn it.
He what's what like. Yep.
No, you go.
Okay. I mean, that I guess it's kind of funny in that the MCU it's not very complex. It's just easy to like.
Yeah.
What you got? What your basic MC? The irony is, to talk about the Marvel formula. What's that formula though? You got a charismatic lead. The jokes are, the jokes hit when they need to. The pacing's fine most of the time. Villains could range from meh to good, but not horrible.
Yeah.
And I mean, like you go in.
Well. There is one incredibly terrible villain, and that's Malekith in Thor 2.
Yeah.
Well,
Dark Elves.
most, I said, most of them, but
yeah, most of them. Okay.
Thor Dark World is that's a bad one.
Oof. Yeah, that's probably my least favorite movie.
But like I said, it's like none of that. Usually they're nothing villains, but they're not offensively bad. You go in, you come out, you get what you paid for, a solid action blockbuster.
I'd argue that even if the villains aren't like particularly complex, they're still entertaining.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Depends on which one.
I think Jeff Bridges is a lot of fun in the first Iron Man movie. I even like Corey Stoll in Ant-Man. I think Ronan is fun too. I think most of them are range from like being genuinely like complex to like just at least being fun to watch.
Yeah.
Because they do choose like great actors to play a lot of the villains.
Yeah.
And some of them are really good. Killmonger,
Oh yeah,
Vulture,
Zemo.
Loki,
Thanos. We'll get to that soon.
Oh yeah.
Oh, big purple bastard.
Super sexy purple Josh Brolin.
Oh god. Yeah. But yeah, there is one thing I don't like about the MCU films, and that is pretty heavily formulaic in a way. It's gotten to the point where I could practically predict the ending of every film just by watching the trailers. I remember that being the case for Spider-Man Homecoming, actually. Thankfully I was wrong, but, it's getting to that point where are we kind of reaching the end in a way, which we'll talk
in
about
what way?
soon, but yeah.
In what ways do you think they're formulaic? Because like, well, whatever. You just
they just become more predictable. They're using the same beats time in and time out again, and essentially just trying to set up the next film overall.
I do think that one thing that I guess you could argue is formulaic is the humor. The irony is, I think the humor is great because, like I said, charismatic actors, and they're usually well written, and the timing's really good, right?
Yeah.
But it is it is the same type of humor in that it's mostly comebacks. It's almost always comebacks or put downs, right? Verbal quips. Very rarely do you get any other type of humor. Not too many examples of physical humor. Oh, there's some. I guess you could say that could get tiring too.
In a way, yeah.
But, I feel for people who say like they just don't find the MCU movies funny because if you don't, you're just like
You're dead inside.
That's not what I meant, actually. I would just say it's like you're gonna have a bad time, and I guess I kind of feel bad for people who really dislike the MCU because it's going to be a part of their lives forever.
I don't know.
I avoided Star Wars until like the week The Force Awakens came out, so I'm sure people can do that with the MCU.
But I mean, Star Wars, obviously, it's big, but like its cultural relevance in the 2000s was kind of middling, right?
Oh yeah, that's
Right.
true.
The cultural relevance of the MCU is so explosive. I don't look up MCU shit almost at all, right? It
What?
is, and like especially in the digital age, right? Like online, everywhere.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's the other thing too, that being in the digital age now, um, so a lot of what you see is online. Like I'm getting like hell. I log into Google, swarmed with MCU articles, usually
Yeah.
about the same shit just every time.
Yeah. Martin Scorsese makes a new comment.
Let's
Yes.
talk about that. Let's talk about Martin Scorsese's comment.
Oh
God.
boy, that's a whole thing.
Oh my god.
It's so bizarre. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised that he said something like that because his films are so like they're put on such a pedestal that I imagine that a little bit of ego will go to his head. But like, what was it he said exactly? He said that like
He said
they're not real cinema. That's what he said.
He
and
compared them more to
roller
Like
coasters.
to theme parks and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I guess, but like
I guess
that doesn't mean they're not cinema. That doesn't mean they're not films. And also, a lot of people like to rag on the MCU and say that they're just dumb, fun action movies. But like and although some of them you can definitely like make that argument, but like most of them I argue there's more to them than that. Like people like most people, at least most people I know, aren't watching these movies just because of like, oh, they have these cool action set pieces. Like that might be part of it, but like a big part of why people enjoy these movies are the characters, are the performances, are the cinematic connected universe elements, stuff like that. It's not just going there for the spectacle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like what he said, first of all, I wasn't surprised at all. Not because of who he is. I don't think I've seen his movies. Not like I've avoided them just by chance, right?
Right.
But the thing is, I think people kind of forgot this. We get at least one comment like this every fall. Every fall
we do.
season.
Definitely.
Why?
I remember
Because the blockbusters are out in summer and spring. It's time for people to advertise the Oscar bait movies. And for that, and tailored towards a different audience. And I feel like kind of talking shit about like what's mainstream, quote unquote, is kind of an easy marketing tactic,
Oh, definitely.
Really get people.
Although it's funny because the last person I remember who did something like this was Jason Statham, which is really ironic because he does movies that I'd argue are worse than the MCU with how spectacle they are.
The Meg.
How dare you talk shit about Hobbs and Shaw?
The Hobbs and Shaw is fucking great. It's fucking great.
I'm Black Superman.
Oh god.
So that's what I thought at first, and then I saw his follow-up, right? And he was kind of explaining how it's like he doesn't see these like, oh, he does see cinema, but he doesn't hate them. He said like, oh, I just want like smaller movies to get more attention.
Yeah.
Which
is something I could definitely understand.
I could agree.
I mean, that's fair.
There are some things I do fundamentally disagree on. One thing was how he kind of described like quote unquote smaller movies, because he was kind of saying, oh, there's two types of movies. There's like studio movies, and then there's cinema, quote unquote, right? First of all, I think it's pretty I don't want to say ignorant or lazy, but I just find like it's pretty dumb to just categorize movies like that into these two
Yeah,
groups.
and overly generalized that way.
Yeah.
I mean, fucking hell. How, like, I've seen a lot of small budget movies that are fucking dumb as shit.
Yeah, just
You know?
because your movie is like very independent and stuff doesn't automatically make it good or better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But The Room is an independent film.
Shots fired.
Cool Cat Saves the Kids is an independent film.
More shots fired.
Goodfellas equals The Room equals Cool Cat Saves the Kids.
Yes.
Oh, God. But yeah, it's I do kind of see what he is talking about. Not even just smaller films have to compete, but larger studio films as well. Less so butts heads with the MCU, more so tries to avoid it with as much distance as
Yeah.
they can. Like, here's a good example. Rampage and Avengers Infinity War. When Avengers Infinity War was pushed up, Rampage also pushed up dramatically. Which, kind of just shows the state of, how...
Or hell, how can we
the film
forget the...
industry just views the MCU. It's just a really terrifying entity overall.
And let's not forget the fucking when the MCU proved that yes, it had the biggest stick on the market. When Civil War was up against BVS and BVS backed down.
Yeah.
Like holy, like the MCU fucking beat Batman and Superman. It scared them.
Literally the two most iconic superheroes ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And I remember leading up to BVS, there was just so much hype behind it. People like constantly making small comparisons like, oh my god, it's the first time Superman and Batman will be on screen together. This is gonna be so good. And yet the amount of chatter for Civil War was almost non-existent. Yet it overpowered it in the box office with such ease.
I remember people saying like BVS was going to be like, oh man, the MCU is going to have its money cut out.
Oh
for it,
yeah,
I tell you.
Yep. Well, sorry to disappoint, kid.
and it's funny because like you mentioned, they were originally supposed to come out the same day, and when those dates were known, we didn't know that Captain America 3 was going to be Civil War. So when that happened, so at first people were like, "Oh yeah, BVS is going to destroy it because it's just another Captain America movie." I mean, I'm sure it's going to make its money, but it's just another Captain America sequel. But as soon as we found out that the sequel was going to be Civil War and it was going to have all the other Avengers in it, like that kind of changed everything. And I think it wasn't only until after that Warner Brothers moved the release date.
Yeah.
Man. Imagine if they did release like at the same day.
Oh, that would have been a glory. That would
like you thought
lovely to see.
You thought the machete fights at Frozen 2 were bad.
Oh, I heard about that.
This just in, Frozen 2 proven more dangerous than the Joker.
The Joker.
I've seen both. I agree.
Frozen 2 is better than the Joker.
Ouch.
You see, I disagree, but like my soul agrees. Like it's complicated.
Oh boy. What else was I gonna say? Fuck.
Now I'm just imagining Batman going after Superman with a machete.
Oh my god. Well, he might as well have had a kryptonite machete. It wouldn't have been any less ridiculous than what we got in the
we have to save this. Save this one. But yeah, in terms of the fucking big dick energy of the MCU, and especially with them releasing 3 movies a year.
Yeah.
For all 3 quarters, one in spring, one in early summer, and then one in late summer, usually.
I think that's also a big part of why they're so successful is how they keep consistently putting out movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As opposed to something like, Star Wars, which is like, well,
They tried the 1 a year thing.
Oh, yeah, they did try, but even that, it's just one a year. With the MCU, they're putting like 2 or 3 a year. And I think they've always done that. I'm pretty sure.
No. It used to be roughly 1 or 2. It used to be 1, then 2, and then 3.
Yeah.
Oh my god! What if they get to 4?
Oh,
well, with the Disney Plus shows, it might as well be that already.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
They'll just
true.
have the like Disney Plus exclusive ones.
Yeah, which I think, as of now, it's confirmed She-Hulk, Wanda and Vision, Moon Knight. What else was there?
Miss Marvel, Falcon, Winter Soldier, and Falcon.
Yeah.
Hawkeye, the Hawkeye show. I'm really excited for that.
You know what? I just remembered. For a while, I was thinking that after Endgame, it's going to be done. They're kind of out, right? Like,
Yeah.
sure, there'll be sequels to the ones they have, but is it going to be that great? And I just remembered. Oh yeah, they just got all the X-Men
Yeah.
and the Fantastic Four.
We're gonna be here for a while.
I think I still feel like it's a little too early to tell like where the future of the MCU success-wise is going to be, because like, okay, we got Endgame, obviously that's the end of that chapter, and we got Spider-Man Far From Home, which is a sequel to a Spider-Man movie, and it's a Spider-Man movie, so of course it's going to do well. I think what's really going to determine if the MCU still has, that hold is going to be stuff like the Eternals, like whatever new original like franchises they come up with, and if those end up being as successful as the previous ones were.
Yeah. Also, I think like maybe even the show should also be taken into account as to how far.
Oh yeah,
they go.
definitely. But and I feel like the shows could potentially negatively infect it, because it could be a thing where like, well, why should I go watch this new Marvel movie that has the new characters that I don't know anything about, when I go watch this TV show that has like Wanda and the Vision characters that I already know and care about?
Yeah.
On the other hand, I mean, with Endgame, the Marvel fever is at a pitch high. Mans are in it for the long run.
Yeah.
Hell, it's borderline like, people were saying that Endgame was almost less of a movie and more of an event, right? But that's kind of how all of. I wouldn't say it's less than a movie, but I'm saying in terms of the MCU movies, that's kind of what they are. They're events as well as movies, right?
Well, specifically specifically like the really big ones, like the Avengers films or the Civil War.
It's like celebrating Halloween. You just kind of do it.
Yeah. But stuff like Ant-Man or like even Captain Marvel like weren't really like as
big in the cinema.
Yeah.
I got that too. Yeah.
Well, Captain Marvel made $1 billion, so
Captain Marvel still did really well, but like in comparison to like something like Avengers, which is like a big crossover thing.
Yeah.
Of course.
And it's being hyped up like through all these.
Because for the Periphery movie, some people will just catch them on now Disney Plus.
Yeah, like my mom was literally just watching Captain Marvel yesterday for the first time because she hadn't.
Oh my god, we have a story about how Captain Marvel started for us, and it was funny.
Oh boy.
The first 10 minutes, the dialogue didn't work, but here's the thing. You could hear low rhythmic hums whenever the characters would talk or move. So for the first 10 minutes, I thought we were watching a really trippy flashback scene. And I was like, wow, this is a really ballsy way to start this. Like, I'm actually impressed. then someone, and we were all like, are they really trying to like tell this more visually and maybe have us guess what they're saying? And then someone came in and was like, yeah, sorry, it was broken. I'm like, oh.
That's funny.
Fantastic.
I remember when I saw Captain America: The First Avenger in theaters. um, the screen, the film they were using wasn't working, so we were just waiting in everyone was just waiting in the theater, and it was like a full theater. So people were throwing popcorn, people were getting mad and stuff. So like the manager, whatever, came out and was all like, okay, the regular showing of this time isn't working, but the 3D showing is working just fine. Do you guys want to just get a refund, or do you guys want to watch the 3D? And literally everyone was like, no, let's just watch the 3D. Why would anyone like say no to that? Strange.
True.
I remember that. That was a fun day. I also like lost my phone like after the movie finished. So like afterwards when the movie finished, like me and my mom just stayed in the theater looking for my phone. We did find it, but yeah.
Good
times.
I will say one of the most memorable experiences it was at watching Infinity War, not having been spoiled, knowing nothing, and I remember when the very last shot, Thanos is looking at his fucking farm, right?
Yeah.
The screen cuts to black, and I will never forget that audience reaction, which was like 9 emotions at once.
Oh
yeah.
Some of the best like audience film experiences I've had were with the MCU films. Like specifically it was with Avengers, the first Avengers movie, Infinity War, and Endgame. Because I saw Infinity War in IMAX, and that was just incredible. Seeing every single pore of Thanos' face, it's just incredible. So thick.
That's one weird fetish you got there.
I'm Rahul, although you've seen weirder, and you probably have weirder.
God,
you can't prove shit.
but one moment specifically during Infinity War that I always like kind of think back to that still blows my mind is like. It's that scene where Vision and Wanda are being attacked by the 2 members of the Black Order, and then Captain America comes in, and then he catches the spear and he steps into the shadows, and the audience just goes insane. Yeah. And the reason why I always think back to that is I remember when the first Avengers movie came out. And everyone was joking about how like Captain America is no one's favorite Avenger and how no one likes Captain America, except for me. I always loved Captain America, but and it's just such a testament to how these movies were able to get like audiences so invested in these characters to the like even characters that a lot of people didn't necessarily think would resonate at first. Like it's like it was just such a cool moment for me. He's like, yes, everyone loves Captain America now. He's now like a ton of people's favorite character, like a superhero now. And
he doesn't swear. He's a good role model.
he's what Superman should be in the DCEU movies, but whatever.
Save it.
Like the fact like Hawkeye is a similar thing too. Like when the first Avengers movie came up, he was like, oh, he's just got a bow and arrow, who cares? But then like,
Age of Ultron made Hawkeye the shit.
Age of Ultron made him a ton of people's favorites, and then by the time and it got to the point where Infinity War, like literally the thing everyone was asking is like, where the fuck is Hawkeye?
The best scene in Age of Ultron is them just kind of dicking around at Hawkeye.
Oh yeah, that's great. The whole farm sequence is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a sign of how great these characters are. I would happily just watch them in a room interacting.
Yeah, just watch a sitcom with them. Just them, basically.
Yeah.
Which again is why it always kind of irritates me when people are like, oh, they're just whatever dumb action movies or whatever. I'm just like, oh no, there's plenty of stuff there.
Even then, I'd argue there's value in dumb action movies.
Depends which dumb action movies we're talking about.
Well, of course. There's different types of dumb, right?
Oh yeah, that's true.
And there's a difference between like, let's say the dumb you see in Fast and the Furious versus the dumb you see in like The Predator.
I'd argue they're about on the same level.
Okay.
The problem with the Predator is how it works with the rest of the franchise.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. That's the thing. Like, at least with Fast and Furious, it's like you got dumb one-liners, you got all the bullshit happening, right? But no one's trying to get on in the Fast and the Furious movies.
Or any form of brain damage or illness.
Autism is the key to
That-
our future.
The only way I can describe Predator to anyone is the Predator is on a quest for autism. How are you not sold?
Yes. And then the dude gets an Iron Man suit at the end.
Yep. Shane Black and work.
Oh my god.
Everyone thought it was going to be a xenomorph. It would have been the easiest way to introduce the xenomorph.
Have you guys seen like all the different ideas they had for?
It was going to be Sigourney Weaver. It was going to be like an older Newt.
Yeah. The Predator Killer. No, stop, please.
Just an Iron Man suit.
It was literally a desperate attempt to like bring the Predator and the AVP series back in canon with the Alien series as well.
Even though that's not really possible now with
It
Alien
wasn't.
Covenant.
Yeah, I
With
know.
Alien
That's the
Covenant.
thing.
Don't say that name. Nick's
oh,
going to show up.
No. I've discussed all this stuff with Nick before, but like,
no.
oh god, what was I gonna say? But it's weird because the Predator, because we see like the spear from the end of AVP that what's it called? What's her name? I don't even remember her name. The main lead in the first Alien vs Predator film, we see like the makeshift spear she had that the Predator made, the Scar Predator made for her. Like it's in like the display thing in the Predator. So I guess the AVP films are still canon to the Predator franchise, which is really weird.
I mean, like I said, me and Rahul did a podcast on this already. It was a damn nightmare to talk about.
They also use the shurikens from the AVP movies in the Predator.
Yeah.
Well, it's all from the comics too, right? For Alien.
Yeah, but that specific design of those ninja stars is specifically from AVP.
Yeah.
That's true.
Because before that, we just had like the smart disc.
Which Predator 2 is also in canon with the Predator and AVP technically.
Oh yeah. I appreciate that they mentioned Predator 2.
And now that Disney bought them, they're gonna throw them into the MCU.
I actually think it'd be cool to see like a Predator Marvel crossover or something.
Honestly, they could do that now. Oh goodness.
Yeah, I wonder.
The Avengers have to stop the Predator from getting autism.
I wonder how the comic rights are going to work because Dark Horse currently has the comic rights, but now that Marvel bought Fox, I wonder if they're going to switch all of the Dark Horse properties over to Marvel like they did with Star Wars.
I know what they're going to do. I know what they're going to do. Disney's going to buy Dark Horse.
You know, Disney works with Dark Horse, right?
Oh, they do?
Dark Horse actually Disney has a line of comics for their animated movies. Dark Horse makes them all.
That's weird.
It has already begun.
Wait. Then why did they switch? When they bought Star Wars, they switched over Star Wars from Dark Horse to Marvel?
Maybe Dark Horse. Maybe they just it's just a case of Dark Horse they didn't want to make any or didn't have any ideas, so they gave them to. So Marvel got them to make their own because they just wanted to make their own series.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alright, I feel like we're staggering a bit here.
Yeah. MCU.
That's how all of these go. We could literally only stay on topic for Godzilla.
And Jurassic World. Jurassic World Evolution.
The game. Yeah.
Oh, I'm super excited for the 93 DLC.
Ah, same.
Hey!
So fucking hyped for that.
It's gonna be so good.
Like honestly, that DLC is gonna make the game like perfect for me essentially.
I I'm
Because
getting my
it's
JP3 Raptor.
yes, I'm so excited for that. I love those are my favorite Raptors, the Jurassic Park 3 Raptors. I love those so
Yeah.
much.
They're fucking like the sadistic trapping Raptors.
Yes, it's so stupid that they didn't have any of those skins in the game to begin with. It's so fucking stupid. I don't
But hey,
understand.
better late than never, right? And for the low
I
price
guess
of $20.
Yeah, I have to pay $20 to make the game essentially.
Well, I guess there's the answer to why they weren't in the first place.
and I love how Frontier like a lot of the stuff that we've gotten since the game first came out was shit that Frontier said, "Oh, it's not possible to add that to the game."
You know what? We'll save this for the 10th. You'll have to join us for a playthrough now. You have to.
Ooh.
What we're gonna do is Rahul's gonna play the DLC and we watch him, but we all decide what to do with the parks.
Yeah. And also, I really want to discuss, because Jurassic World Evolution has changed so much in the past
it's incredible,
half a
yeah.
year. So I want to talk about the Clear Deering DLC up to the Jurassic Park DLC. So yeah, join us. December 10th.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, back to MCU. Goddamn. You know what? We'll round this down. We're already past the 1 hour mark. I think one thing I definitely want to ask is, top 5 favorite MCU films, and give a reason for your number 1 only.
Oh fuck. Okay.
I'm gonna pull up my letterbox.
Oh, God.
He's whipping out Letterboxd.
Yeah, bring up my list.
All right,
My
how
list.
about David? You go first while.
Oh fuck. Okay.
Or if you want, I could go.
Okay, I'll go.
Okay.
In no order except for one, I'd say like throw Civil War in there.
Yeah.
Be basic. We'll throw Infinity War in there.
Yeah.
I don't have fuck. I don't have that many hot takes. Like the other, put throw the first Guardians, obviously.
Yeah.
For the second last one, let's say someone either Iron Man or Black Panther. I like the story of Black Panther more, but them effects. Oh no.
Oh yeah, they're
no.
Alright, I need to speak about those effects. They used motion capture, but they had such good physical suits, they could have just used those! What is wrong with you?
I think that's a critical example of sometimes, man, you need action directors should be on set to direct action movies.
You know what's also weirder? The guy who directed the film is the same guy who directed both Creed films.
Oh wait, never mind. Fuck.
Like, listen, I understand the spectacle of CG, but you need to know when it's appropriate and when it's
Jurassic World. Yeah, Jurassic World.
Like I hear
or just make it good.
No, here's the problem. The film was set to release in February. The visual effects team didn't get the clips of the final battle sequence until October. So
Oof.
they only had
5 months.
They only had 5 months. They had to rush it. Now, God bless those people, but I think it would have been better if they just did physical suits and just focus on the environments.
Definitely, yeah.
It's just know when it's appropriate. All right.
Yeah.
If you're using motion capture, if you're using actors, use the suits. Then don't try to kill your visual effects team, please. All right. I hate it when this kind of shit happens. It really. It's really fucking frustrating. I'm sorry, but I had to.
It's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
All
No,
right.
it's fine. So that's the thing, right? Like that whole situation is Iron Man, story's still great, the effects are more on point.
Yeah.
But I do really dig Black Panther. And my number 1 would actually be Guardians 2.
Ooh. Nice.
yeah. Are you ready to reveal your top 5?
Okay. The last one, the first one is a little bit more of a hot take. My number 5 is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Alright.
I absolutely adore Age of Ultron with a burning passion. Like I think it's one of the most underrated MCU films. A lot of people keep talking about how like, oh, it's not as good as the first movie, and it doesn't have the same magic as the first movie, which of course it's not because you can't really replicate the first Avengers movie unless you bring in like just more characters, which is what they did in Infinity War and Endgame, of course. Like you're not gonna recreate like that shot, that fucking shot in the first Avengers movie where you see like where we kind of we pan around the whole team in the circle.
Well, not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet. Like you're not gonna recreate that, and I appreciate that Age of Ultron doesn't try to do that. Like it's just telling a straightforward story, and you can definitely feel Joss Whedon's passion in that film because I don't know if you guys know this, but the only reason why Joss Whedon decided to do the first movie was because he had this idea for an Ultron story that he wanted to do, and he had a very specific take on Ultron that he wanted to do, and Feige was all like, "Well, yeah, you'll get to do that in the sequel, but obviously you have to do the first movie first."
Yeah.
And
I
know.
will say,
Go ahead.
I will say, Ultron has the single great best motivation for wanting to destroy humanity.
The internet.
He's born. Oh man! All right, let me see the whole internet. Doot. All right, nope. We're done. We are done here.
Extinction time. Woo!
yeah, but that's a thing because one thing that I feel like people don't really like pick up that much in Age of Ultron is that when Ultron first starts off, he doesn't want to destroy humanity. He just wants to kill the Avengers because he feels the Avengers are preventing humanity from evolving forward. He doesn't start to decide he doesn't decide to destroy humanity until like after the Avengers kind of take away everything from him, like the Vision body and stuff like that, and then he just becomes more bitter, and he's just like, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna destroy all of humanity out of spite. Yeah. Like
my man internally saw all that Waluigi porn, and he was done. No more humans.
But
give me a minute. Go on.
But like a lot of people don't like Ultron in that film, and I understand that because he's very Tony Stark. But that's kind of the point. And that's also part of why I love him, because he's basically like just this really like whiny child, but who just has access to like all the information in the world. And like James Spader's performance, I just think is great in that film too. Like I just like I love that take on Ultron that Joss Whedon had, and I love all the stuff with Hawkeye. Obviously we've brought that up earlier, and how we kind of like that move, like his whole thing in that movie is kind of trying to justify his role in the team.
Right.
Where like he's kind of the one that grounds the other Avengers.
He's the real reason Ultron wants to kill the Avengers. It's like, oh, look at you. You're the key example of what I'm trying to prove.
Well, man. But yeah, Age of Ultron, that's my number 5. Number 4 is Black Panther.
Don't mention that CG sequence, or I swear to God.
Okay, I won't. I kind of revolve that and Civil War. Spoiler alert: Civil War is my 3. But Black Panther, like, it's become like popular to hate it, especially amongst the chud crowd. But like, the stuff that movie does, like especially for like a mainstream like a comic book film, I feel like is really ballsy. Like with the stuff like it talks about, like in terms of like race relations and stuff like that.
Right.
And like how the villain is basically like almost nearly just being a black supremacist.
Yeah.
Like that's and I feel like no one talks about that. Like no one talks about how like ballsy that movie is with a lot of the subject matter.
That's why I love. That's why I like it too.
And like, I love that basically and I love how it talks about like, moving forward with, with like country relations and stuff like that, and like not being beholden to like to like past like policies and stuff like that, and like
Right.
trying to, yeah. I don't think I'm I'm explaining it properly, but I'm sure you guys understand what I mean.
Oh no, we get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like it's just so. It's so like it almost doesn't feel like it's part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a lot of ways. Like it feels very standalone, more so than a lot of the other MCU movies do.
So something that I feel like also is like overlooked a bit is Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther.
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
I adore the fact that he's one of the few Avengers who I was talking about how like the humor is the same. He doesn't do a lot of jokes really.
Oh no, he's pretty.
He's probably the most like toned down, but he's still very charismatic and very likable.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if I honestly, he's probably my favorite like Avenger, like character in this whole thing, just because of that. Hello?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
There was like pure silence, like not even the dogs. Like, I thought I disconnected.
Yeah. And then my number 3 is, like I said before, Civil War. Although I kind of revolve around that and Black Panther, that kind of depends on my mood. Civil War is just like that. I think Civil War has Robert Downey Jr.'s best performance as Tony Stark. Like you really just feel like he's not like he's just very like desperate and very like vulnerable in that movie that you don't really see in much of the other films. I mean, you do see quite a bit of that in Endgame too. But although the CG on the Iron Man suit is not that great in Civil War.
Definitely better than
It's fine.
Panther.
No, that's the other thing. Black Panther looks great in Civil War.
You know what I meant.
I love that like even though like it's still very much a Captain America movie, and that and that's why it's Captain America Civil War. No one is really 100% right by the end of the movie. Like there is no like the movie doesn't give you like a definitive like, well, obviously Captain America is 100% on the right. Like the movie's definitely siding with him more, but there's this sort of like my favorite bit in that movie is after Tony and Steve have their battle. Steve and Bucky are starting to walk away, and then Tony's just like, how dare you, walk with that shield that my father made when you're basically betraying everything he stood for by, saving the man who killed him. And then Steve kind of has this little moment where he's like, shit, you're kind of right. So he drops the shield, and that's just such a great moment. It's so good. I love it.
The end fight is like the best climax in the MCU.
Yeah,
and like again, like Robert Downey Jr. just really sells in that scene that he's just like this, like he's just like broken inside,
like he's lost it finally.
Yeah, like that like when he turns to Steve after they see the video and he's like, "Did you know?" Like he's just whispering and he's just like, it's just so, and there's like no music playing and it's just so
all visual.
Actually, there was a bit of an eerie ambience going on during that part.
But
it's very low. But yeah,
I know there is one when they're actually like watching the video, but specifically like when they finish watching the video and he turns over to Steve and he kind of starts whispering to him. Like,
yeah.
I feel like there's no music there.
Yeah.
But
anyway, your number 1.
Oh well, I didn't say my number 2.
Oh wait, shit.
No, he's at 3. Like,
oh shit, no, sorry. Oh god, I'm so sorry.
My number 2 is Infinity War. It's great. I mean, I don't know if I can say much. Josh Brolin is just incredible. The CG on Thanos is like, it is a crime that movie didn't win any like special effects, and it just went to whatever space movie came out that year because the Oscars love them space movies for special effects.
But Infinity War was a space movie.
Oh yeah, I guess, but it's not like it's not about space.
No, I'm just like talking about it in technicality, so you
Yeah,
know,
right.
it's just
Yeah. I know. I'm just being.
I love the dichotomy that like Rahul told a joke, and then Carlos told a joke, but then Rahul didn't get the joke and like explained the first joke to you.
shit.
But I remember when Infinity War was coming out, I was like really like disappointed when they told us that Thanos wasn't gonna have the same like obsession with death that he has in the comic books, because I love comic book Thanos. So I was like kind of preparing myself to be a little bit disappointed, but when the movie opens, like they sold me almost right away, mostly because of Josh Brolin's performance on their version of Thanos, and it's like I'm okay with changing things for adaptations as long as they either make sense or if they're just as good as what they were in the source material. And I think Josh Brolin's Thanos and comic book Thanos are on the same level in terms of how like interesting and compelling they are. And also that ending was just pure goosebumps. I mean, I knew it was coming. Like I think most people knew it was coming, but like Tom Holland, obviously, that's kind of become a meme. I don't want to go. I don't feel so good.
God damn it.
But it's really
No, it's a gut punch. Even though you know
Yeah.
they're gonna come back in the moment,
Yeah.
it's like you feel it. You really
like
feel every moment.
I love when Captain America he sits down over the Vision's body, and then he just kind of he breathes a couple minutes. He's just like, oh god. Like,
Don't
they
do
lost.
that. You're gonna get Bucky in your lungs, man. Don't do that.
Something that's a bit underrated when it comes to Thanos. So that I kind of just thought about now. He doesn't have a theme. He has like a little motif that plays whenever he talks. Right?
Yeah.
It's quite unsettling.
No, you're right. You're right.
There's something about it that just really sends chills down your spine.
I don't think I've noticed that, but we'll look into that.
Yeah.
I'm not like a big soundtrack guy, like unless it's like something that really like stands out to me, like
They do the same thing. The funny thing, they do the same thing with Kylo Ren in Star Wars. He doesn't really have a theme. He has like this motif that plays. Interesting there is that it always plays after his scene, or after he's done talking, and kind of and the screen will kind of sit on his face. I don't know, just like a little detail with these two movies that I noticed.
Yeah. And number one is Endgame.
Oh,
That's probably predictable.
Damn.
But it's just it's a celebration of everything this franchise has accomplished, essentially. And a lot of people dislike it because of that. Like, a lot of people kind of feel like it's just an MCU circle jerk. But, like, and it kind of is. But, like, at that point, they kind of deserve it, I'd argue.
I will say, it is fan service, the movie.
Definitely. But it also,
It's not bad fan service.
Yeah, and it makes sense for like what the movie is, because it's literally the culmination of everything we've set up since the first Avengers film, and also the first Iron Man film to extent as well. And it also like another thing that I love about that movie, even more so than Infinity War, is just how like it just doesn't give a shit if you haven't seen any of the movies. Like, there's just constant like references or like callbacks to like stuff, like even just like little lines from previous movies.
Yeah.
Like the cheeseburger thing, like that's from the first Iron Man movie when he first comes from where was he? I don't even remember where he was. When he went after he escapes the cave and stuff, and he comes back to California.
Yeah.
And he's like, I want an American cheeseburger. And we call back to that with Happy and his daughter, where he's like, "Oh, your dad liked cheeseburgers," and it's like, "Oh my god, that's amazing!" Like, it's great because it's not just it's a cute reference. Like, it's also like an emotionally like resonating like moment.
Yeah.
And like the time travel is really weird. I still don't know if it entirely works. But I do appreciate that they didn't go with traditional time travel where like it affects the whole timeline, because then all the movies we've watched would be pointless.
Yeah.
Like that. That's when the movie was coming out, like, and people were like, "Oh, they're gonna time travel." I was like, "Oh, I don't want to do that, because then like that would like reset the whole universe, and I don't want that." So I appreciate that they didn't go down that route. But and like
That's going to be the plot to one of the the universe gets reset, and then they have to reset it back.
maybe I can see something like that. That could very easily be a shit show, though.
I mean, the way that the films are going on now, they are definitely going close. Yeah, they are definitely tying closer and closer to the source materials. So, yeah, we might get to that point eventually.
I know the Russo brothers, they said they wanted to do Secret Wars, but I don't know which Secret Wars they're talking about, because there's two events that are called Secret Wars. There's the original Secret Wars, and there's Secret Wars 3, but it's not called Secret Wars 3, they just called it Secret Wars again, which always irritated me. Although I haven't read Secret Wars 3, which is the second, well, not the second Secret Wars, but it's the second event that's also just called Secret Wars, but I just called Secret Wars 3 to distinguish it. I haven't read it, but I know like what the general plot is. Like, it's like all the universes are converging and shit. So I don't know. Maybe they'll do something like that eventually, but we'll see.
Yeah, probably.
I don't know if I necessarily wanted to go that far. Like, a lot of people are saying that that's how they're going to get the X mutants into the universe, because it would be really weird if they're just suddenly like, oh yeah, mutants have been here all along, even though they very obviously haven't.
Honestly, I kind of like that idea. That mutants have always been in the MCU, they've just been hidden.
I'd rather have that than them doing like a reality splicing thing.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
But at the same time,
or just have like, you know, I know it might take away the fact that they're mutants, but just have just a, you know, newer batch of superheroes. Yeah, it make more sense, but
sure, but that because the whole point of the mutants is they're just the next stage of human evolution. So you have like just ordinary people with getting super.
No. Here's how they really subvert expectations. They're not like they don't have superpowers. They just have a lot of cancer.
Oh god!
Wow. The ultimate.
Wolverine is nothing but a tumor.
Wolverine, but instead of 3 claws, it's 3 tumors.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The Ultimate Universe.
All right, let's wrap this up real quick. I need
to...
Okay, so I already listed off my movies.
Yeah, I should probably just speedrun this. Captain America, First Avenger, Guardians of the Galaxy. Number 3. Shit. I don't know what number 3, but number 2, Civil War, and number 1, Infinity War.
Just gonna skip number 3 like that, man? Wow.
I didn't have a number 3, I'm sorry. But, yeah.
Number 3 is his hatred for Black Panther.
So, yeah, yeah, that's everything, I guess.
Yeah, nice.
This podcast went places.
Yeah. I feel like I kind of stumbled a lot, but that's just me in life.
Ironically,
quick comments. You just gave us paragraphs.
I brought you on, Carlos. So like, oh man, he's the MCU fan. Surely he could.
Well, I didn't want to like take over your show too much.
Welcome to our show.
Because if you did that, then I would basically just be lecturing about the MCU throughout the whole podcast.
Yeah,
you guys
pretty much. Yeah. All right, but
no, hey man, it's been a great time.
Oh yeah, this was lots of fun.
Yeah, this was great. Yeah. Can't wait to have you back on for the Jurassic Park DLC. Yes.
Definitely.
I mean, the best part about this podcast is there's just one big teaser to our DCU discussion.
Yes.
But yeah. But yes. For those who are watching, thank you all for tuning in. Yes, I'm talking to the 10 of you. Gentlemen, it was nice having this discussion, and yeah.
All right.
See. No, sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna mention if any people are interested in my stuff, I have a channel, Ultratron563. I mostly just do like fan edits and bullshit, so you probably won't find anything significant there. But hey, might as well do a plug. So
Yeah, yeah, just send me a link. But yeah,
uh,
yeah, thank you all. See you all next time.